In a world drowning in noise, where truth is often buried beneath layers of propaganda and misinformation, there's a need for a different kind of a network of creators that cuts through the clutter, that doesn't shy away from tough topics, and that delivers the unfiltered truth. We are Trim Radio Network. We are creators, we are innovators, we are investigators. We're the ones who aren't afraid to call a spade a spade. If you're ready to participate in thought-provoking discussions, informational topics, and of course today's biggest headlines, subscribe to our YouTube channel today. We're Trim Radio Network. We're cutting the bull and serving the truth.
Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. You take the red pill, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, 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 take the red pill. You stay in Wonderland. You stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Now, from the northeast quadrant of the United States, it's the Red Pill Reality Show with your host, Riscala. Saturday nights from 9 p.m. Eastern until midnight on the Trim Radio Network. You can join the conversation in any of our chat rooms. And now, without further ado, your host, Riscala.
I gotta tell you, I feel like Roger Dangerfield. I get no respect. So I attempted a few moments ago to go live, and I don't even know if I'm live now. It doesn't say that I'm live. Wow. All right. Well, we're going to try anyway. Tried a few moments ago to go live, and the screen froze up as I was trying to divert from one screen to another. Totally, that's never happened before. And it usually tells me if I'm live. I can't tell if I'm live. It doesn't say I'm live. I don't know. I'm guessing. You guys out there, I hope somebody's watching. Oh my goodness. It's amazing. I do a dry run every time, and almost every time I have some problem when I go live. I'll do a dry run off the air, checking volumes, making sure particular videos are working and so forth. And then I go live, and it's like, no, you can't do that live. So, wow. All right, got a bunch of stuff I want to talk about tonight. If my screen will allow me. Geez. We have, it's doing it again. What the hell is going on? All right, I'm gonna assume that I'm online, that I'm live. My computer's not cooperating. I don't know if it's the computer or the platform. The platform that we use allows us to go live on Facebook and let's see, Facebook, our website, LinkedIn, and somewhere else. And that's not showing. This is so whacked out. All right, guys, I'm going to have to cancel. I'm going to have to cancel. I can't. It's everything I try, I can't believe that this is happening. What in the world? Okay, well, it looks like I'm live. I hope I'm live. Having all kinds of issues on my end. I'm not sure if it's my computer or if it's the platform or if it's the connection. All right, let me see if this will work.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife.
I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, where the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me.
And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt
I love this
land.
God bless the USA.
God bless the USA.
From the lakes of Minnesota
to the hills of Tennessee,
across the plains of Texas, oh, from sea to shining sea. From Detroit down to Houston, and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say, oh, and I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me.
And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today.
'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
God bless this country. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up
next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land.
God
May
bless.
God please bless you.
Maybe now it's better. All right. So I had to check the wiring up under the desk because I thought some of the wiring it's just so weird. I guess it's the platform. I'm not absolutely sure, but I'm guessing it's the platform. So I'm just going to go ahead and wing it anyway. There's a lot of things I wanted to cover tonight, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it all. All right, let's see. Where do we want to start? You know, I've talked a couple of times. We have 9/11 coming up just a couple of weeks from now. It'll be September the 11th again. And in remembrance of all of that, I have been, the last couple of shows, I've been mentioning things about 9/11. Um, one of the viewers sent me a text on Facebook, on our Facebook page, and said they didn't believe that. How could people? They didn't believe that there was no aircraft, that there had to be aircraft. How could people see what they saw? And I've explained many times that I'm not absolutely positive. I don't pretend to know it all. But what I do think that happened was, if there was any aircraft at all, it had to be a missile. And around that missile, there was a hologram. That's what I think people saw, was a hologram. People on TV that watched an aircraft hit on TV, I expressed that what had happened, again, this is just my opinion, but I mean, the evidence points towards that, and that is the media was in on it. The media was providing it. So let's go to, all right, now, these are short videos I'm going to play tonight, most of them anyway. This is about witnesses that day that were there.
No, a bomb, I saw it. No plane hit, nothing.
That is not a plane. They don't know what they're talking about. How would they see a plane hit that?
Dude, I saw the second explosion. That was no plane that hit the second building. It exploded from the inside out.
It was a bomb. Bombed another building, not second plane. That was a bomb. Who said the second plane?
That's what we're told, the second plane. We saw it on television.
I saw everything.
All right, thanks a lot.
What happened was I was down in the basement. All of a sudden we heard a loud bang. And the elevator doors blew open. Some guy was burnt up. So I dragged him out. His skin was all hanging off. So I dragged him out and I pulled him out of the parking lot. This was what was left on it. Pulled him out. When I pulled him out, I looked up and the second bomb blew off. Just saw a big burst.
All of a sudden, you heard a loud explosion. So we all ran to look. And the first building was a big hole on the side of it, and on the other side went in flames. So we stood there in shock. Everyone's screaming. A woman collapsed on me. I had to lay her down on my textbooks. And then before you know it, out of nowhere, the next building blew up. And then all of a sudden, everyone's running all over the place. A panic attack.
We actually didn't see the second plane, but we saw the explosion hit the other tower.
It has to be a bomb, right? Yes, of course. That exploded right in front of us.
I did not see a plane. They said the plane hit the first building. The second building just exploded.
That looks like a second plane.
I did not see a plane go in. That just exploded.
More people on the ground that day, and they're telling you they didn't see an aircraft. Now, how was it some people could and some people did not? I'm telling you that most of the people that saw it were more than likely watching it on a video of some sort, either on a phone or a computer or television or something. And those that were there live that may have seen an aircraft, it had to be a hologram. The holographic technology that the government has had for, my gosh, I don't know how long. And I'm warning people, this kind of stuff.
Oh, blessed Jesus, look at that.
They're very capable of this kind of stuff. I've had several of my friends tell me, no, that's not a hologram. That's a being. I still think it's a hologram. I still think it's a hologram. And I think that they're using things of that nature to deceive people. We are probably the most deceived population at this point in history. There's so much deception going on. And to be able to discern between everything, you've got to take a step back and look and go, well, now that doesn't make sense, and this doesn't make sense, and a lot of it doesn't make sense until you dig into it and you try to figure out why would something like that happen. I've got another one here. Let me find it. I don't know if this is it.
The FBI interviewed the various people who had received a phone call from their relatives on the planes, and their reports tell a different story. One of the reports reads, starting at approximately 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, which is 9:30 New York time, Dina Burnett received a series from 3 to 5 cellular phone calls from her husband, Thomas Burnett. Burnett was able to determine her husband was using his own cellular phone because the caller ID showed his number. Only one of the calls did not show the caller ID as she was on the line with another call. According to the official documentation, Thomas Burnett made a total of 3 calls, one at 9:30, one at 9:37, and one at 9:44. This means that at least 2 of these calls, if not all 3, were made from Burnett's cellular phone. At 9:30, the plane was flying at 32,000 feet and climbing. At 9:37, it had reached 36,000 feet and was still climbing. At 9:44, it had descended to 22,000 feet, while it accelerated until reaching a ground speed of almost 400 miles per hour. None of these calls seems to have been possible with a cell phone from that airplane. According to another report, United 93 passenger Jeremy Glick saw hijackers on the plane, used a cell phone, and called Makeley, his stepmother, to report the hijacking. He then asked to talk to his wife, Lisbeth.
And he was on the phone and he had told me that his plane had been hijacked.
According to the FBI, Glick's wife, Lisbeth, could not hear any unusual sounds in the background of the call, and the connection was extremely clear, as if he was calling from the next room. Cell phone communication was lost at 9:55. Glick placed the call at 9:37, which means the communication lasted uninterrupted for 18 minutes while the plane was flying between 39,000 and 10,000 feet at an average speed of almost 400 miles per hour. Only a miracle could have kept that connection open for all that time had the call truly been placed from the airplane in flight. Lauren Grancolas possessed a cellular phone and is believed to have allowed another passenger, Honor Wainio, to use the cellular phone. Wainio placed 1 call to her parents at 9:53, when the plane was at about 10,000 feet, traveling close to 400 miles per hour. Elsa Strong received a cell phone call from her sister, Lisa Gronlund, a passenger on United 93. Gronlund made the call to her sister at 9:46, when the plane was at 17,000 feet and traveling at almost 400 miles per hour. Marion Britton was also a passenger on United 93. Britton's live-in boyfriend received a cellular phone call from Britton during the hijacking. Britton told Fiumano, her boyfriend, that she had borrowed a cell phone from another passenger. Britton's call to Fiumano took place at 9:49, when United 93 was flying beyond 13,000 feet at a speed of 420 miles per hour. Peter Hansen, a passenger on United 175, contacted his mother on cell phone and said the flight had been hijacked.
Amazing, huh? I mentioned a couple of times on the shows about a government plan that was called the Northwoods Project. When you have time, go look that up. You'll see there's a similarity between Northwoods Project and what happened on 9/11. And while I'm at it, these people, these sick individuals who really truly believe that they are here to rule over everyone. There is no freedom. There is no true freedom. There's a masquerade of freedom, but there is no true freedom. These are the same individuals who want to tell you that you'll own nothing, or was it, and be happy, or something like that. It's the same mentality. How dare we breathe the same air as them? That kind of thing. I thought I had one more. I guess I didn't download that one, but I had another one that give you a little more information that what happened that day. Common sense, a little critical thinking, just a little deductive. You have an aircraft that's made out of aluminum. You have a building that's made out of high-grade steel, reinforced concrete. And what we saw that day, it appeared as though the building opened up and swallowed the aircraft. That's physically impossible. Something had to come back out. Nothing came back out. The aircraft disappeared into the building. I've showed several times the video that I have. I don't think I have it on this point here, where it was live video showing, quote, the second aircraft coming into the building. It was a side view. You can see the aircraft enter the front of the building, and then the aircraft begins to exit out of the backside of the building. That's physically impossible. They realized they had made a mistake and cut it off immediately. I don't think I have it. They realized they made a mistake, cut it off immediately. It was too late. Some people had already recorded it. Just more evidence that we were lied to. Of course, we were lied to about everything. My gosh. And people say, well, why would they do that? Why would they, blow up the buildings? We needed an excuse to go to war. General Wesley Clark has testified that he was told it was going to be 7 countries in 5 years that they wanted to attack. I can't remember them all: Syria, Iraq, Libya, Yemen, Syria, all in 5 years. Afghanistan. It's all planned. It's important to understand that the real criminals for 9/11 that have brought us to where we are today, I really see in my lifetime, having lived through all of this, if you could put it on a graph, what would happen is if we were kind of tootling along, and then all of a sudden 9/11 happened, and the patriotism of the country went whoop. But while the patriotism was way up here, these dirtbags behind our back were literally stealing our rights from us and then introducing them to us as something very, very worthwhile. The Patriot Act. The Patriot Act stole so many of our rights from us, gave the government the right to come arrest you at any given time without any warrant, without any justification. You will not necessarily going to have representation. It's the kind of thing that nightmares are made out of. And what we're seeing today is the reversal of that. But because it has gone so far, it has gotten so dirty that what we're seeing is painful. And people who don't really understand what's happening are absolutely just going bonsai berserk. Oh my God, we have the National Guard out acting as police. That's the first step to martial law. Got news for you. More than likely, we've been under martial law, just never announced. He wouldn't be able to do what he's doing without martial law. You can't just bring the troops in. That's why so many of these people are freaking out. Oh, we're going to go under martial law. It's just an undeclared martial law. But that's basically what we're under right now. Trying to reverse this ship from the direction that it was going, because the direction we were headed is not good for our future. For somebody like me, I could probably live through it without too much of a great deal. But what about my children? What about my grandchildren? What about my great-grandchildren? Because that's how far out these people plan. Generations and generations. That's how far out they plan. We have to step on their feet now. Otherwise, they will stomp all over our children and our grandchildren and those after. The ideas that are going through our society today. We have these 2 children. Where is that? 2 children, lives taken. I think a third now has died because some guy decided that he wanted to go shoot up someplace. He wanted to go shoot up a church. I wonder how many people realize that every one of these shooters, yes, I'm going to say I'm relatively positive, 98% sure what I'm going to tell you is accurate. Every one of the shooters was on some kind of psychotropic of some sort, maybe an antidepressant of something, but they were on some kind of freaking drug. And the side effects of a lot of these drugs is suicide, violent behavior. But they're going to blame the gun. You watch. The gun got up all by itself. The gun pointed it all by itself. The gun pulled its own trigger. These are people that are being used by the darkness of this world in order to promote their agenda. Their agenda is eventually to disarm us. That's what they want. I'll call him a friend because he really didn't do anything unfriendly to me. He was always very respectful. This man was a federal lawyer at one time. He knew that I carried. And we had a discussion one time, and he said, well, I'd just like to have nobody have guns. And I said, what? That doesn't make sense. Would the police not have? Oh, no, the police would have guns. So you're saying what you're agreeing to is no civilian would be allowed to have a gun, law-abiding civilian, by the way, because the criminals could care less. You can pass all the laws you want. So no law-abiding citizen is going to have a gun, but all the police can carry guns. Anybody that works for the government in particular circumstances can carry a weapon. Yeah. And this guy was, like I said, he was always respectful and friendly to me, but he was so far off because that's not what the people who put this country together, they had the foresight of hundreds of years. And the reason that they put the Second Amendment in there was they knew there may come a day when the people of the country, the people who the country gets all of its money from, the patriots, realize that those who are supposed to represent us they haven't represented us. They've been parasites. They've cheated us out of all kinds of things, and they've robbed us. Speaking of rob, this is what I'm talking about. This is the mentality I'm talking about. Let me see if I think I have this. This is unbelievable.
So, Chris Ed, you think the Supreme Court will hear the case of those two parents with their daughter, who's 11 years old, I remind you?
Man, I sure hope the Supreme Court takes this case. No parent should lose their rights or have them stolen just because they put their kid in a public school. The appeals court excused this massive overreach by the school by using a false modern twist on a legal doctrine we call in loco parentis. That's supposed to allow the schools in emergencies to make decisions when the parent is not there to make those decisions. And their application is completely unconstitutional. It's not a mechanism to remove rights. It's a mechanism to be guarding the safety of the child. And it's the Supreme Court's job to strike this down once and for all.
They're looking at passing a bill in California. As God is my witness, I'm telling you the truth. They're looking at passing a bill in California. Can't remember the bill number. This bill would allow anyone, your child is in school. This bill would allow anyone, once they have your child's name, to fill out some paperwork, turn it in. They're not related to your child. They may not even know you. They just know your child's name. They turn in this paperwork and they can come pick this child up at any given time without telling you. This is the sickness that we're fighting. There's nothing normal about someone who would try to pass that kind of legislation. What in the world, of what advantage to someone other than a pedophile would want that? If you're a parent and you have someone else that you are trusting to have your child picked up, then you put their name, not some stranger off the street filling out some paperwork. Oh, I happen to know her. Her name's Jane Doe. And now I can go pick Jane Doe up anytime I want. Are you kidding me? And then, of course, you have to deal with these people who have this mentality that, oh, Johnny, you like pink and you like flowers. Oh, that's really nice. Johnny, maybe you're not a boy, Johnny. Maybe you're really a girl and you're stuck in a boy's body. We can help you. Is that what you send your children to school for? because that's what this one was about. This one I just.
So, Chris Ann, you think this?
That's what that's about. 11 years old,
so
I think.
Chris Ann, you think the Supreme Court will hear the case of those two parents with their daughter, who's 11 years old, I remind you?
11 years old. 11 years old. They want to transition her without her parents' knowledge. You don't think that's sick? There's something mentally wrong with these people. On top of that, I easily forget, and forgive me, Lord, that we're fighting a spiritual battle too. This really, the root of all of this is in the spirit realm. You can't tell me this is a God-loving individual who would want to pass legislation to allow a stranger, literally a stranger, to come pick your child up without your knowledge. Or you find out the hard way that the child that you've been sending to school, the school has been literally indoctrinating them into believing that there's something that they're not. And when people speak out against it, oh, you're a phobist of some sort, or you're racist or something. There's some kind of phobia involved.
Well, first of all, one mistake on your chart there. Out of the 300,000 children, I looked at the numbers just yesterday. We've located over 23,000 of them. So 23,000 locations of the 300,000. Well, President Trump's committed. We're not going to stop till we find every one of them, or at least run every lead down on those 300,000 children. That's a big plus for the administration, because the last administration wasn't even looking for them.
They think it's over 400,000. Almost 500,000 children that they don't know what happened to. But yet the media will jump up and down, scream like somebody got them by the short hair because Trump has got tariffs going on, or Trump is deporting people. And I will be honest, absolutely honest. I'll tell you that I'm still not absolutely happy with some of the things he's done. I have issues with some of the things that he's chosen to do. But since I don't know, I might know a fingernail's worth of information, a pinky fingernail's worth of information compared to what he has at hand. But I don't like the idea of supporting Israel. That's probably going to get me in trouble. But I don't like it. Why do we need to support Israel? What has Israel done for us? If you look at history, true history, you will see that Israel is not our friend. The SS Liberty is part of the evidence of what I'm saying. And now they're going to say, well, he's anti-Semitic. No, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm probably more Semitic than most of the people over there. No, I'm not anti-Semitic. I'm not talking about the Jewish people. I'm talking about Israel. I'm talking about the government. You think our government is crooked? Holy smokes. Where do you think they got all their examples from?
Look what's happened in the last 23 years. A disgrace. I personally investigated the Oklahoma City bombing case. Huge cover-up. Jack Kennedy's assassination, huge cover-up. Bobby Kennedy's assassination, huge cover-up. World Trade Center, huge cover-up. Okay. Terrorism. They're using it as an excuse to take away our constitutional rights and our civil liberties. The Bilderbergs, the Illuminati, Bilderberg, New World Order, globalists are the element behind this. It dovetails into the satanic movement, and this movement has infiltrated into our intelligence community, the once great FBI and the CIA.
That's the next FBI chief telling you. The Satanists. I believe he's giving credit to what I told you, that the root of this fight is in the spirit realm. These people do things that they believe gives them more power. And in some cases, it actually does. give them more power. They do rituals. They drink blood. You know, the Bible says you're not supposed to drink blood. They murder children. Horrific things that once you see them, there's no unseeing it. There's no forgetting it. But maybe we're going to see some justice. Maybe. The reason I say that, I mentioned the last couple of shows, there are phrases and words that are being used more and more now. Treason. No one is above the law. Can't think of the other one. Not a conspiracy. No, I guess in a way it's a conspiracy. Yeah, conspiracy. More and more, I'm hearing these words and I'm wondering, and I'm seeing posts as well where suggesting that Barack himself should be arrested. Now, from what I understand, the president has a degree of immunity, but the immunity that he has is during his presidency, anything that might have happened that would be in the nation's best interest that he acted upon. It doesn't apply to him being a president and trying to literally overthrow the government. That's not going to work. So maybe, hopefully, justice is coming.
Numa, ma, na, ma. Numa, ma. Numa, ma, na, ma. Numa, ma. Numa, ma, na, ma. Numa, ma.
Like I said, certain words and phrases are being used more and more. Maybe it's a precondition. I tie that in with all of the guard that has been sent out. And I've read on several articles where this isn't just going to be DC. This is going to be, I think the article said, around 13 or 14 states right off the bat. Florida was one of them because I lived in Florida for a while. Ohio's another one. California, of course. But states that you wouldn't think they would be deploying them there, but they're going to deploy them there. Many of the states are what people would refer to as a blue area. I think that this is happening because the republic is going to be restored. And I noticed something the other day that was in front of us all, but I never really paid any attention to it. On the side of Trump's hat, he has 45, and then he has dash, and then he has 47. Think about that for a minute. If I said to you, listen, I need 3 or 4 of those things right there, and you were to write that down, you could write it as the number 3, the word or 4, or you could write it down as 3-4, meaning anywhere between 3 and 4. I've told people that the man that we call the president today has been the president all along, but he's been the president of the republic, and he's been what's called or referred to as a wartime president. He hasn't been out in the open. He's allowed these people to do what they do in order for us to realize just how sick and twisted these people are. My dog's giving me a fit. When all of that went down, if you recall, he said several times, the best is yet to come. This is before number 2 now. When the 2020 election was happening, the best is yet to come, the best is yet to come. And then I think at least 3 or 4 different sources, all sources that were from different avenues. And if I would take, if the 3 or 4 of them, I would take the average among them, and if it came out to something, more than likely that something was accurate. And all of them agreed on the same thing. Quit. He's mad. They all agreed on the same thing, and that was in 2020, when they were going to have the inauguration, they were going to arrest like 300 people. The majority of the Congress and stuff like that was going down. I was certain of that. Of course, it didn't happen. I heard stories. I read a couple of articles. A couple of people saying allegedly from the inside they couldn't go through with it because there were several reasons. A major backlash. People would have had the ammunition that they needed to say Trump was a dictator. He's overthrowing the government. There was another couple of reasons that they just, it wasn't there, and they were trying to do all of this. And I'm going to play you a video shortly. What these people are trying to do, that are taking our country back, they're wanting to do this all legally. They don't want someone to come along in a couple of years from now and do everything that they've done. They want to be able to do it by the book, and therefore, if it's done by the book, as we go down the road in time, these people, these fanatics that want to change our country fundamentally, you remember that? We're going to fundamentally change the country. Do you remember that? Well, doggone it, he tried, didn't he? Fundamentally means that the very fundamentals of our country, our rights, we're going to change. So I told you that Trump was in with the military. Now, some of you, this may be redundant to some of you, but those who haven't seen this, will, well, I think you'll appreciate it.
About 3 years ago, a group of generals came to me, and it was explained to me they were ready to conduct a coup d'etat. They were ready to move Barack Obama from office with military force. And then a few weeks later, I got another call and said that they were reconsidering. You know why they were reconsidering? No, why? Because they talked to Donald Trump. And Trump agreed that he would run. And they agreed that if he would run, they would conduct their coup d'etat as a legitimate process, rooting out the traitors within government. And that pact between the military and Donald Trump has held. As we've been interpreting and watching, and Alex has been following QAnon, QAnon is military intelligence and close to Trump. And the intelligence we're getting really is a lot of the inside script. Now, everybody says Donald Trump is going to lose, he's going to be out of office, he's going to be impeached. You watch CNN, MSNBC, they're throwing a party today, and all the 20 people watching them across the nation are very enthused. Donald Trump will not be removed from office. He will not be removed from office. And in the counterattack he's going to launch, one or two facts that could change everything. Get a report from Michael Horowitz, the Inspector General, who details the corruption within the Department of Justice. Donald Trump is right. Maybe we should tear down the FBI building and start over again. And if you take a look at the depth of this corruption, it's pervasive since George H.W. Bush. The bureaucrats who have stayed, including these SES bureaucrats who are there mostly permanently, they're globalists. They don't believe in America anymore. They think they're smarter than America, smarter than the Founding Fathers. We ought to revise the Constitution. They are, there's a very simple word that describes what they are. Traitors. Traitors. It's a capital crime. And I want to predict to you here today that when the tables turn, Donald Trump will be invoking military tribunals, and even Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are going to be facing treason charges. It will not end, and Donald Trump will have the courage to do that. Every time it looks to me, I've said this about Donald Trump, I've known him for decades. I said, Donald Trump always looks like he's going to lose until just before he wins. Always. He's always looking like he's 1 inch from being, losing all his money. 1 inch from losing this deal or that deal. Everything Donald Trump has done in his life has been a success. And in the final game of this, I think Donald Trump will reduce the bureaucracy. I'd say 95% would be good, maybe 100%, because the bureaucracy isn't specified in the Constitution. There's no discussion. There's no article about the bureaucracy, which means it can all be removed. Fire them all. And I think what we can have is a rebirth, as we say, of freedom in this country. But I want to say 2 or 3 things about Zuckerberg. Someone has come forth as a Silicon Valley insider, anonymous, and has been writing me extensive emails, which I've now been able to validate. And the story of Zuckerberg and the others is this. Facebook, all of the major ones, Twitter, YouTube, Google, every single one of them is a creation of the CIA. They were funded by the CIA, and they were there. And by the way, they are all considered dispensable. Zuckerberg may not realize it, but he's in the ejection seat. and the button will be pushed and he'll be ejected out. But the real power in Silicon Valley is the infrastructure of the internet. It's the Oracles. It's the Microsofts, the Sun Microsoft systems. These are the tracks, the railroad tracks on which the internet runs, the bridges, the infrastructure. And the people who are really controlling Silicon Valley are the Larry Ellisons. These are the people you know less about because they're not the front men. You know, Zuckerberg is dispensable. Eric Schmidt is dispensable. Google is dispensable. They'll just replace it with another one because the real godfathers are the Larry Ellisons and the others. And who funded Larry Ellison? The CIA, the military-industrial complex, moving in with Lockheed and the others wanting the creation of a new generation of electronic hardware for the military. And in the process, and that started going back into the 50s. What happened is along the way, they realized with social media, they could create something where we would all give them all of our information freely about everything about ourselves. People even post pictures of themselves naked, which they keep forever. Every click you make is going right into the intelligence agencies. And then that data is being profiled and given to the New World Order, sold for money, for advertising and marketing. And by the way, Zuckerberg may have his own rules and his own, we're going to protect privacy, but don't for a minute think that they aren't still collecting the information. They've got it all. It's archived. It's every phone call you've ever made, every email you've ever made. And people are stupid enough to put these devices in their homes, which can record everything they say. Facebook can track you even if you're not a member of Facebook. They can all do all the tracking anywhere you appear on the internet, and that stuff is archived forever. What we've got to do is we've got to reclaim the internet. We've got to have an internet Bill of Rights, as it were, to impose First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment. We've got to do this through Congress, and I'm here to tell you that before Donald Trump is done, the internet will be 100% regulated, or it will be broken up. Because Donald Trump understands the threat to our freedom. The threat to our freedom every one of us face with this information is so massive control that never occurred to George Orwell or Aldous Huxley that this could happen. But I'm here to say that in conclusion of all this, the same conclusion in the book I've just written, in Killing the Deep State, it ends, in the end, Donald Trump wins. And never forget that in the end, God wins. Thank you.
Amen. I bet the liberals are twisted over that, huh? In the end, Donald Trump wins. Oh, boy. But I believe that's what's going to happen. I do. It's like I said earlier, there's some things he's done. Israel is one of them that I mentioned. Ukraine. Why are we still giving money to Ukraine? When we know that Ukraine is one of the most, if not the most, corrupt governments in that area. They're guilty of all kinds of things. They have biolabs there. There's all kinds of human trafficking that goes there. You talk about Nazis, real Nazis. I mean, the ones who carry the swastika and the whole 9 yards, they are there. So why do we keep giving them money? I read a report that much of the money that we gave them in one circumstance was for nothing more than to support the government. So we are paying for their government. But when it comes to our citizens, that's a different story. See, this is what we're fighting. The mentality of bringing people in from other countries, paying them while they're here, literally paying them. Some of them were put in hotels that were like, 2-3-star hotels. And shame on of course, there's no shame anymore, but shame on the hotel owners. Of course, they get, I'll have all my beds, which is highly irregular for a hotel, unless it's in a really popular spot and there's a big deal going on. There's always 1 or 2 empty somewhere. Oh, you're going to have every one of them filled, and we're going to pay you premium. Wow. This is the mentality I'm talking about. It's like he said, these people they hate America. They don't want America. They want their version. Their version is you will have nothing and you will be happy. You'll own nothing. Correction. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And in a way, partially that's coming true. I mean, you think about this for a minute. Now, this is a prime example, and I see this happening. I see this example being brought up more and more, by the way. And this is something that I never could get over. You buy a house. You've paid the house off, but the house isn't yours. Why? Why isn't the house yours? Because you have taxes on the house, and if you don't pay the taxes, they take your house from you. So literally what's happening is you're a long-term tenant that has management authority over the property. You can manage it. You can do with it whatever you want, but it's not yours. They can come in and take it from you. Does that seem right? After all the taxes that we pay, does that seem right? There's people complaining about, oh my God, he's going to make the rich richer and the poor are going to be poor. That's an age-old saying. And if anybody was going to do that, it was the last administration. Now, I'm sure that rich people are going to get richer no matter what, because once you achieve a certain amount of money, it's almost just multiplies by itself. You've got to invest it in all these places. It really doesn't take much at that point. It just starts working for you all the time. So yeah, the rich are going to get richer. It's part of the system. There's really, whether he does what he does or whether he doesn't do what he does, there's still rich people are going to continue to get richer. I think his focus is on more of the middle class, the people who are hard workers, the people who have a family to support. And he realizes how the dollar has just been stolen right out from under us. I don't have that on here, do I? I don't have that. I have pictures of the dollar that I had growing up versus the dollar that is out today. They're not the same. The dollar that I had growing up, the dollar bill, across the top of that dollar bill, where you see Federal Reserve note, across the top of my dollar bill, I got one, but it won't show up on the camera. It says Federal Reserve note. What does that mean? Excuse me, back up, correction. On top of mine, it says silver certificate. Well, what does that mean? It means that that dollar was a certificate for silver. And I had on occasion where I had a dollar, a physical paper dollar, that I took to the bank and I was given a silver dollar in exchange for that. And that silver dollar was 999 silver and it was 0.875, I think, was silver. So it was like almost 88% silver. And it was just a little over an ounce total. And had some other metal in there. That silver dollar today is, the cheap end, I think, is around 18 or 19 bucks. To buy one that's, it's like just a normal dated silver dollar. You might be able to find it for as cheap as maybe 14 or 15 bucks, but typically 18, 19, 20 bucks. Some of them, depending upon the condition, as much as 30 bucks. Imagine whatever you're making now per hour, multiply that by at least 10, because realistically, that's how much we should be making according to how these people have stolen from us over the years. So if you're somebody who's just basically making it along on minimum wage, which I think is like 15 bucks, I think, or something like that. Now we're talking a livable wage. $150 an hour is a livable wage. You can have one of the parents, if it's a two-parent home, you can have one of them working outside the home while the other one builds a home. You can have the nucleus of a family like I had growing up, which it doesn't exist today. It's more, well, we're going to eat out, or we're going to order fast food, or we're going to do something. It's a lot different when you can sit at a table and have a dinner with your family and have a discussion about things that are going on. That doesn't occur anymore. It did at one time for me, but it doesn't occur anymore. And I believe that's part of the breakdown of our social makeup. All right, so people have heard of Q. I'm sure many people have heard of Q. I have watched videos where people say Q is military, and there's a lot of, I don't really believe in coincidences, but that's the only term I can come up with in the language that I can point out. There's a lot of coincidences with this Q in the number 17, which is Q is the 17th letter. Just so many of them that it's difficult to say, well, this is really hard to swallow, Riscala. But when you pay attention to see what's going on, you see that there's information being put out, kind of cryptic sometimes. But once the information is out and what the information is about comes to pass, then you can look at, some of the stuff is dated 4 or 5 years ago. Keep your eye on this or watch for that. And then here it is 4 or 5 years later, and that's happening. So these people plan out way in the future. And what I'm getting is that it's coming. Justice is coming. They're preparing people. I was talking about the Guard being all over the place. I believe one of the reasons that they're putting the Guard all over the place is because of fears of riots when they start these mass arrests. There's still people, even with this evidence that have come out, there are still people who think that Obama was the best president we've ever had. Just the best. And I believe that no matter what you do, no matter how much information you give them, regardless of how accurate, it might be 1,000% accurate, they're still not going to believe you. They're still not going to accept it. It's called cognitive dissonance. The truth is so difficult for some people to grasp that they refuse to think about it. Forget it. I don't want to talk about it. No, I don't care. No, you can't. No, I don't believe you. This is what you get. And I feel bad for him, but I'm not going to give him my energy anymore. We're too far down the road at this point. Way too far down the road. If they haven't figured out what's going on, at least realize that they have been lied to, they have been manipulated, they have been deceived. They can't figure that out by now. With everything that has come forward, there's not a whole lot someone can do for them. All right, on to the next video. This is Q. This is, and again, you guys, I know for some of you this is redundant, and maybe it's good to kind of go back over things every once in a while, but I got looks like some newer people. I got somebody in LinkedIn. Wow. Looks like some people in LinkedIn watching. Hi. Anyway, so they may not be familiar with this.
Something is going on. Some of us see it, some of us feel it. It's time to expand your thinking. You will need to reset everything you thought you knew about the world, about the people you trust, about history, about yourself. Let me tell you a story. For a very long time, our world has been under the growing influence of a vast transgenerational criminal mafia that was able to rise up to the highest levels of power. We didn't know because they talked and acted just like you and me. We thought we could recognize true criminals by their words and actions, but were deceived by their sophisticated speech, wealth, education, beauty, and power. Through a system of threats, blackmail, and bribery, they would come to occupy the highest levels of power in government, corporations, and education. You may know them as the Deep State or Cabal. Most dangerously of all, they achieve almost total influence over the media, their primary means of controlling the good people of the world who were just trying to get on with living. They used this power to slowly convince us that we were the problem, that we were a threat to each other. They used race, gender, and religion to set us apart, and rewrote history to validate these false claims. They funded both sides of wars just to crush our potential to prosper and succeed as a peace-loving and creative force of good for the world. Now, with their firm grasp on the media, we drank in their entertainment and lies as they began their final phase, the total takedown of America. We were the brightest remaining beacon of freedom and humanity's last hope. They knew that if they could take America, the rest of the world would follow. They cut deals that led us to hand over total control of the money system to a private central bank, the Federal Reserve. This made it possible to influence Washington, D.C., and most of our presidents since then were beholden to the criminals in one way or another. Things took a really bad turn when they concentrated vast power into the hands of the many civilian intelligence agencies throughout the world. They said they were there to protect us. Instead, these agencies were catastrophically weaponized to boost drug and human trafficking cartels, assassinate political opponents, undermine the military, and change regimes of foreign governments who did not want to adopt the centralized system of money control. You might think they would choose simply to remain in the shadows running their criminal activities while we carried on with our lives. But as long as there was freedom for the people to prosper, the cabal were always at risk of being discovered and shut down. There was no way to continue without a plan to eliminate all threats to their survival, even if it meant imposing a single world government under their jurisdiction, where no national identity, police force, or military could stop them. They called it globalism. Exploiting our emotions and our instincts of compassion, they found a way to justify dismantling cultures, borders, and national identity under the guise of social justice, creating false narratives of racism, colonialism, and capitalism to destabilize and ultimately collapse societies so they were no longer secure enough to reject this dark plan for the world. Where there was no history to distort, they would use wars to force a catastrophic mass migration of peoples across borders to destabilize and weaken cultural identity. When we didn't accept this, they called us intolerant and shamed us into silence. By 2008, America was in advanced stages of economic decline, with disastrous trade deals leading to widespread loss of jobs and a devastating financial crisis. The cabal had now absorbed another extensive criminal empire that was aligned with a twisted and radical form of Islam. Realizing the competition could threaten their goals, they decided to cooperate and agree to mutual terms. Now a hostile foreign enemy was able to insert a subordinate into the U.S. political system who would become the president. Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal funded Obama's Harvard education and took power by proxy, picking his entire cabinet while buying vast quantities of control in our largest media companies. The Western faction of the cabal was different. It was another kind of sick altogether. A dark and deeply sinister death cult with a strong reliance on symbolism and numerology, with levels of cruelty unimaginable to all right-thinking people. The reach and scale the secret society had achieved would have sent destabilizing shockwaves across the world were it ever to be publicly exposed. They were highly skilled at living just below the surface as they worked their way into the United States presidency. With both factions of the global mafia now in control, are you ready to hear what they had planned? Make sure you're sitting down. They installed rogue operators in government. They opened back doors to leak highly classified military intel and top-secret special access programs. They cut military funding and weakened the command of generals with irrational new rules of engagement. They worked to dismantle NASA and end our supremacy in space. They infiltrated and exposed defensive military intelligence programs that reduced our ability to detect foreign and domestic threats. They used our trusted agencies to target and weaken political opponents. They relaxed our borders and enabled passage of millions of illegals and violent criminal gangs. They moved money to fund global terrorism, resulting in groups like ISIS moving to capture vast territories throughout the world. In 2016, the Cabal Alliance had hoped to retain power. If you are not yet chilled to the bone by the picture that is forming about their intentions for us all, let me tell you what was to come next. Through international climate change scams, they would have siphoned trillions of remaining wealth, eliminate the last good guys in government, and withdraw total funding from the U.S. military, handing over the responsibility of our defense to the United Nations. They would revise the Constitution to weaken our ability to fight back, ban the sale of firearms to eliminate our self-defense, insert their people into the Supreme Court, remove the Electoral College system to neuter our voting power, and totally eliminate alternative media to shield them from exposure. They instigated a covert deal to move large quantities of our uranium to their captured states in North Korea and Iran to build up a nuclear arsenal that would threaten the world. For this, they blamed Russia, a growing force of opposition to their ambitions of global control. By casting Putin as an enemy and blaming him for this illegal uranium deal, they had planned a devastating nuclear world war between America and Russia that would have exhausted the last two remaining pillars of freedom for the world, accelerating the horrific endgame that had become inevitable. This cabal miraculously lost power in 2016 when a brave operation, led by a U.S. military alliance and their global partners, were able to return power legitimately over to the light. They had a plan of their very own, one that was many decades in the making. With Donald Trump selected for the role of president, the people of America were slowly awakened to the reality of the world they live in. With so much hidden and lied about in the media channels we had come to trust for our news and entertainment, this alliance of good set into motion a sophisticated strategy of dismantling the vast network of corruption that had almost completely overcome every level of government, industry, and the legal system. They knew they had to follow the laws of the land as they were originally intended. Otherwise, they themselves would be delegitimized, even though they were just trying to free us from the silent stranglehold of tyranny that we had come to accept as normal. The panicking deep state used any remaining power they had left to try and save themselves. Each day for 2 years was a careful and meticulously planned balancing act between public perception and the job that needed to be done. Moving too fast would shock and scare a sleeping public still living in the prison of the mind that was created for them. But after all this, it appears now that not only are we winning, but we have won. The trajectory of this great storm is now radiantly clear. Now we look forward to a new future, thanks to the brave patriots who risked everything to save our world. This time for good. There is not a person alive who has experienced what a world without this darkness could be like. A world of free energy that was kept from us to force our dependency on their fossil fuel monopolies. Abolishment of income tax that was illegally imposed to pay back interest on loans taken from the cabal banking system. Released cures for our most deadly diseases. Unleashed space technologies to open frontiers we never dreamed possible. New technologies creating millions of jobs and yielding a global human renaissance the likes of which we have never seen. Fellow Americans and citizens of the world, now it is our turn to shine. Wherever we are, we will become the plan when we choose to reject what they called globalism. We recognize the words they use to bend us to their will, and we say no more. It's time to turn off the media, follow your instincts, trust yourself, and be the plan. May God bless America and the world.
So I have heard that story from several different sources that, again, they're not immune to being incorrect, but they've been, more times they've been correct than they have been, much more than they have been incorrect. And according to them, Donald Trump is part of a plan and was approached by the military because the military at one point was going to literally have a coup, a military coup, and take Obama and put him in the prison right there on the spot. But their concern was, if they did that, the damage that would be done to the country, they may not be able to recover from. So the idea was, well, let's beat them at their own game. We'll introduce someone, have them become the president, and then through that presidency, we will eventually get to these criminals. And so far, I think that is happening. I really do. When you hear words like treason coming from the president of the United States, treason, being used more and more, and statements like, well, if they're guilty, I'm paraphrasing, but if they're guilty, then there should be severe consequences. No one is above the law. Isn't that what the other side kept saying all the time? Nobody's above the law. That's what they used against Trump. Nobody's above the law. Even the president. They illegally raided his residence. I really think what they were looking for is he had evidence that was incriminating to them. And that's what they wanted. I don't think they got it. I really don't. I think that's what they wanted. That he had evidence. Why in the world would they be looking in Melania's drawers, clothing drawers, her lingerie or whatever, her personal items. I have a top secret document right here. I think I'll put it in with her underwear. Yeah. These are sick people. And I, you know what, in my opinion, every one of the FBI agents that was involved in that, I think they should be fired. There is no excuse about I was just doing my job. Your job, you took an oath when you take your job, and it's very similar to the military oath that I took. And the basis of that oath is your allegiance is to the Constitution. It's not to your boss. And if enough people would have stood up to these criminals, they wouldn't have been able to get away with what they got away with. But the problem was too many people stood down. And as a result of that, this is what we're seeing today. The country has been infested with a cancer. It is huge. One of the estimates was like 300,000 or 400,000 people. I can't imagine. Between all the different judges and the prosecutors and the mayors and whoever else they got out there, it's in the thousands. So maybe those FEMA camps that they had built for us, well, I'll say for me, I don't know about you, but they would be for someone like me, can't keep his mouth shut, refuses to accept tyranny, refuses to allow someone to stomp on his rights. Yeah, someone like me would be a troublemaker. I wouldn't be out looking for it, but the way that they work is they come find you, and then they do, crazy things to you. The government is out of hand. It's just totally. Think about this. I remember this. I don't have this video, do I? I don't have that video. There was a guy who was he's a Christian man, and he was out, and I'm not, my memory's a little fuzzy, but I think he was somewhere near an abortion clinic or across the street or something like that. And he was offering prayer to anyone who was headed in that direction. He had done this on several occasions. On one occasion, he brought his son with him, and he was offering prayer to people. And some man came up and began to literally harass the two of them. I believe the man attempted to put hands on his son or put hands on his son, one of the two. And this man responded like any father would respond, Kapowie. Police were called. They came out. No charges were filed. And it was all said and done. During that time, he had opposition to the existing administration, which was the Biden administration. And he had, I guess, made some posts or something. They didn't like it. So they had the FBI raid this man. No, he found out there was a warrant for his arrest. And he had an attorney, and the attorney said, well, I'm just going to bring him in and turn him in. No, you're not going to turn him in. We don't want you to turn him in. And on some degree of time passed later, this man was raided. I think the count was 16 or 18 SWAT at his house with his children. 7 children, I think this man had. Long guns, drawn, pointed. And I believe they put him in prison as well. And it was all going back to this altercation he had with this guy. And they made nothing. They took nothing and made something out of it, just like they did for Trump. They took nothing and made something out of it. I got into such a deep, not an altercation, just an argument with one of the people online, saying, well, you know, he's guilty of this and that and the other. I said, listen, let me just explain something to you. One of those things that you say he's guilty for, just to give you an example, was that he overrated the value of Mar-a-Lago. He said that Mar-a-Lago was worth a certain amount, and it really wasn't worth that amount. It was worth less than what he said it was. The banks gave him a loan on that amount. Now, if you've ever gone for a mortgage or anything, you know one of the things that the bank does is they're going to go, oh, well, we need to pull a report on that house. Let's see what the house, you know, or you want to borrow $500,000. That house only, let's see, it's all the houses around are only going for $399, $400. So I don't think we're going to be able to help you. Or you go, oh yeah, you want 500? Well, we see the houses all around are 600, 550. Yeah, okay, yeah, you shouldn't have any problem. My point is that the bank is going to make sure that the credentials that are turned in that say, okay, this is what we're borrowing money on. We're borrowing money on this property, and this amount of money that we're borrowing could easily cover what this property does. So put that aside for a moment. Now the bank says, during the trial, the bank says, oh yes, he repaid us with interest and paid us on time and everything. We would loan him again. We still found him guilty. You understand? That's how sick these people are. Now the tide has turned and it's coming back to bite them in the proverbial behind. But he had to go through that. Could you imagine if they had done something like that to just the average person? They tried to bankrupt him. That didn't work. Everything that they have attempted to do against him has not worked. There has to be a hand, a divine hand on this man's life. It wouldn't be, it just doesn't make sense any other way. They tried to kill him 2 times. I think in the past I was 10 years old. And I remember seeing on television the murder of John F. Kennedy. And my mom just wept and wept like somebody in her family died. You could not console her. This man was loved so dearly. And they murdered him in front of everybody as a warning to anybody else. And then it seemed like, oh my gosh, like I turned around a couple of times. It was like 5 years later, they got Robert Kennedy. And then right after they got Robert, they got Martin Luther King. Or I think, yeah, Robert and then Martin Luther King, I think is the way it went. This is the mentality that I'm trying to get through to people. These people would kill you and go have lunch and laugh about it. And probably boast as well. We got him out, right? That's the mentality that we are fighting today. A mentality that has been just become a cancer, an infestation. And I believe that the power of that mentality is rooted in the spirit realm. It's a darkness. It's an evil, malevolent spirit. And we shouldn't say we. I shouldn't speak for other people. As a country, with the actions that the country has taken in general over particularly the last 20 years that I've seen, we have turned our backs. The only country that I know of, I can't think of any other country where the basis of the country was formed by praying to God and recognizing that we have a God. I don't know of any other country. If I'm wrong, somebody point it out to me, but I don't know of any other country. The very first Congress meeting was prayer. All of that has gone by the wayside. When I was going to school, I think one of my kids told me, yeah, dinosaurs walked our earth, Dad. When I was going to school, we actually had a time of prayer. We did call it. There was a time of prayer. There was a moment of prayer. And then the libs or whoever got upset about that, and it went from a moment of prayer to a minute of silence. So you could have your moment of private prayer or whatever. And slowly, little by little by little, I don't know what they do in the classroom today. I don't even think they say the Pledge of Allegiance in some of the classrooms. Good morning, class. Okay, turn your pages to blah, blah, blah. Or take roll or whatever. I don't even think they give them a moment to, think for themselves before the day starts. Hey, listen, today I've got this to do. Whatever, just to give them a minute. I don't even think that happens anymore. We lost the great judges last week, right? This breaks my heart. It really, I just feel so much compassion for this man. Watching him over the years and watching his wisdom, knowing that, that kind of wisdom is hard to come by. And the compassion is beyond. If we had more humans on the face of this planet like this man, oh, what a beautiful place it would be. So he passed away this week, and this is my this is my salute to him. My condolences to the family. It's too bad that people like him just can't live forever. Or if you've ever seen some of the stuff that, there's plenty of videos of him in a courtroom dealing with people, and always fair, always compassionate, always caring. Just an amazing man. It's heaven got a special angel. So may he rest in peace. God bless him. Anyway, let's see what else we got tonight. So I've spoken a couple of times about the straw man, and I've caught grief. I've caught grief about speaking about the straw man. That this straw man thing it's all a conspiracy. I don't think so. With all the reading I've done about it, it exists, and I'm going to play a short video for you. It's only about a minute, a little over a minute. But this is a pretty good explanation of how all this goes down and how they play games with us. Remember in the beginning when I said we are probably the most deceived society in history because they have all of these tools that they can pull on us. And one of them is our language. The way that we use our language is a tool for them. And they use that as a deceptive tool.
Have you ever wondered why the word ship is at the end of everything? There's a hidden spell behind every word. Your body is 60% water, and you were born through your mother's waters. When a ship pulls up to its bay, it's called the birth canal. The ship gives birth to the products on the ship. When the ship arrives, it gets a certificate of manifest certifying all the products on the ship. And you arrive in your mother's water, you get a certificate of manifest, which is your birth certificate, because you are a product to the system. On that birth certificate, there's a date. And that date is the Gregorian calendar, which is a copyrighted timeline created by Pope Gregory. Therefore, on paper, your name is a corporation and it's signed to a copyrighted timeline. When you get a letter and your name is in full capital letters, that's your corporation, not you. You can't tax a physical body, but you can tax a corporation. You are the I am, and your consciousness is identifying itself with the corporation, which is attached to the system. The word calendar comes from calends, which is the first day of the month the Romans had to pay their tax. God's calendar is a 28-day moon cycle. They made an artificial calendar to control you. Bank is a river bank, and money is water. That's why money in the bank is called a currency, because the banks direct the flow of the current. And that's why we call it liquidity. The English language is a giant spell to keep you attached to the system. Identifying yourself with the body and the name is keeping us attached to this system.
They play games. And sadly, they're games of life, and we don't know that's going on in many cases. It's a deceptive game. I just read an article where I don't know how legal it's going to be, but there may be grounds to file a suit against the IRS for all the money that we've paid in taxes, because all of that money was collected under fraudulent terms. We were told we had to pay, and in essence, we don't have to pay. It is a voluntary thing. I don't know if I had another video about the taxes. When taxes were first introduced, they were temporary. Income tax we're talking about. They were temporary, and they were 3%. 3%. We're up to like 38% now, 40%. We have to, the first 4 months of the year go to taxes. And then on top of that, what a slap in the face and a kick in the groin. They don't even come back to help us. No, they go abroad. They go out to overseas. And of course, some of that gets skimmed back to these parasites that we call politicians. Some of the good stuff that's happening. Let's see some of the good stuff that's happening. Oh.
Show them the thimerosal bomb, which we keep in a metal container because we're a little afraid of it, and it's a very fine powder.
This is thimerosal, which is labeled very toxic. Has cumulative effects, can cause damage to the kidneys, to the respiratory system, skin, to the nervous system. It specifically warns on here that it can cause reproductive and developmental toxicity, meaning that it can cause things like autism and other neurodevelopmental disorders. This is immensely toxic stuff.
And it's in vaccine.
And this is what's in the vaccine. It's important to realize we're talking about a whole range of products. Vaccines are a big one because, of course, you're directly injecting it. For example, this is tetanus vaccine. This one expires, it's a little outdated now, in 2007. And here's the thimerosal. 1 to 10,000 is a preservative. Perhaps the biggest one in the U.S., at least, that's for exposure to mercury is the influenza vaccine. Influenza vaccine is now recommended for all pregnant women, all infants, all children on a yearly basis. You're supposed
You
to
have
get that
last
shot.
year's influenza? Understand that thimerosal is not added at the end. It's not like, well, that factory next year can make thimerosal free. Thimerosal, you either have to have a thimerosal free factory or you have to not have one. They add thimerosal at each step because the factory is not clean and not sterile. So you either have to have an expensive sterile factory where you don't need thimerosal, or you have to have one that produces thimerosal. It's going to need thimerosal or something the whole time. It needs to be stopped.
This is the influenza vaccine from Adventist Pasteur, their flu zone. Thimerosal, 25 micrograms of mercury per dose.
But I'd like to point out that a lot of people didn't know, and I'm one of them. I've given 2,000 RhoGAM shots. I've been in vaccines for 35 years. I didn't know that RhoGAM had thimerosal in it. So I think a lot of the doctors were unaware. They were unaware that even the word thimerosal meant mercury.
And they want to tell you that autism and vaccines are not related. They're probably going to get in trouble for using those words. But yeah, like I said earlier, common sense, critical thinking, a little bit of logic, you know. Autism didn't exist when I was going to high school. I didn't have a single person that was, quote, autistic when I went to high school. When I went to school, elementary school, and then junior high, which now is called middle school, and high school. Not a single person, not a one. And the amount of injections that we needed growing up, I think was 3. I think it was 3. All of a sudden now we're up to, I heard it's like over 30 now. And the autism rate has gone through the roof, right? For children of color, it's higher than children who are light skinned. It's crazy. There's more and more doctors coming out speaking out about it. And with this, this latest 19 one that came out, the introduction of nanotechnology has been introduced. And people are now realizing there's something literally growing inside. What did I do with that? Well, here we go. The people who do the embalming are finding I'm trying to figure out the best way to put it. What the embalmers are finding, the system is trying to tell them they're blood clots. We want you to list them as blood clots, and they're not going along with that because it's not what they are.
And what's the most common cause for death?
Blood clots. We're seeing loads of people with unnatural blood clots, like white calamari inside them. The coroners won't talk about it. They just don't seem to want to talk about it.
And what do these clots look like?
I've got some here if you want to see them.
Yeah. Yeah, go for it. Wow. So all of these sort of calamari-looking clots, you've taken them out of people's circulation system?
I've never ever seen, I worked for the coroner for 7 years. I've never seen anything like it in anyone before. He's done 20 odd years. He's never seen anything like it before. And we're finding this now constantly inside people that have all been COVID vaccinated. So that's what we're seeing. And I can tell you, having done this job for 18 years, 7 years picking up bits out of the road, that isn't normal. That isn't normal. And it's only, and every one of these people was COVID vaccinated. How do I know? Because I meet the family at the point of arrangement and I ask them, I say, was mum COVID vaccinated? And they say yes. And they tell me. And because the government made such a big thing about you must be vaccinated. If you don't, you're selfish, you're dangerous, you can't work, you can't travel. You're killing people if you don't. People are only too forthcoming then to tell you their vaccine status. And they did get good coverage. A lot of people were vaccinated. These are the people that are dying.
More and more evidence coming out. They knew what they were doing. There's no question in my mind. They knew what they were doing. I remind people of the Georgia Guidestones, where I have learned throughout the process of trying to figure out how these people think, which I don't think I'll ever understand it completely, but what I learned is they have to tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Well, one of the things that they did was they erected this thing called the Georgia Guidestones, and I think it was like 8 languages or 11 languages, I don't recall. And the very first line, the very first was to maintain humanity at 500 million in balance with nature. I'm paraphrasing, but something along that line. You can look it up. Even though it's been destroyed, somebody, allegedly someone else, I think they did. They said, okay, we warned people, now it's time to take it down. But anyway, someone allegedly came along and destroyed it, but there's still pictures of it on. You can go on YouTube and or Google. Even Google has still pictures of it, and you can see. And the first line is 500 million. Well, if they're not lying about how many people on the planet, it's hard to tell what they're lying about, what they're not. But they're saying upwards of 8 billion people. That means like 9 out of 10 people. Because if you look at it at 8 billion would be the same as 8,000 million. That would be 8 billion. 8,000 million. They want to take it from 8,000 to 500. What do you think? That's 9 out of 10 people. They want the majority of the population gone so they can have their technologies that they've suppressed from us. I've said many times, I have friends who know about this technology. I mean, personal friends. I've touched technology that I was taught is impossible. I have personally inspected a circuit that, according to everything that I've learned, and before I retired, I worked on laser printers. I had to know a little bit about electricity. I mean, they only have like 40 or 50,000 volts running through them in certain places. Touch the wrong thing and see what happens. And some of them, it's hundreds of thousands of volts. So I learned a little bit. I had to, everything that I saw that was in this circuit went against everything that I was taught. It was, according to science, was non-existent, was impossible. Yet here it was, and I was looking at it, and I was testing it myself, and it was coming out to unbelievable. So technologies have been held from us, and hopefully now they begin to come out. If they do, our lives will change. But if these technologies would have been released all along, we would literally be living like the Jetsons. We would have cars that don't need roads, don't need steering wheels. You just push in some buttons and it goes where you want it to go. Just like when you whip out your phone and you can get the GPS going, oh, I want to go to wherever, you put that city in that state, and if you've got the zip code, slip it in there and it tells you how to go. Well, this one won't just tell you how to go, it'll take you. Those are some of the technologies that they've withheld from us. People can't get through their mind that stuff that would just blow your mind. Just the hologram thing, I've caught in all kinds of grief about saying there were holograms. If you go look, I think they're still on YouTube. You can go look, and there's holograms. One that comes to mind is some children sitting in what seems to be a gymnasium. And out of the floor of the gymnasium comes a whale. Looks just as real as I'm looking at you right now. Water splashing everywhere. Now, if they're willing to release that, and there's also some malls, I think, in Abu Dhabi or somewhere in the Middle East, there's some malls where they have a man walking. He's got two children, one in each hand. They're walking along, and a dinosaur walks out in front of them, and then a saber-toothed tiger, and I think an elephant or something like that. And if they're willing to release that, you can imagine what they have that they're holding back. Touchables. Yeah. Holograms that are touchable. That's why I say on 9/11, there were no aircraft. They said what you saw is physically impossible. Now, I have to go back and look at the first one again, but the second one definitely physically impossible. I don't know if anything came out from the first one. I don't know if the first one was swallowed up like the second one was. It's not clear in my mind because I don't recall it real well. But I know the second one was clearly, it's like the building opened up a hole and sucked in the aircraft. That's not real. Go online and look some of this stuff up. Search for jet hits concrete wall. Jet hits concrete wall on YouTube and see what you come up with. And look at the vast difference. When this jet hits this concrete wall, there is stuff that comes flying out all over the place. Not just going through the concrete, there's stuff coming back out. And this was a building that was highly reinforced. It was concrete reinforced steel. No, guys, for it to slice through like that was physically impossible. Okay, so I kept. Let me bring this up. So the Thermosol. The reason I played the Thermosol was RFK Jr. is having it banned. It's having it removed from the big vax. He's also removed the mandate on the C-19. He's removed a mandate on that. And this is what scares me. People were put in a position where they actually allowed their rights to be taken from them freely. Hardly anybody objected when they were saying, oh, you have to. I mean, listen, even if I believed in it, and the moment they told me you have to, I'd have said, the only thing I have to do is eat, breathe, poop, and die. See you, bye. Oh, pay taxes. I don't care what it was. I don't care what the job was. No. I'm not going to allow you to override my rights. And now that we're in this administration where things are rebounding and things are being restored again, maybe these people who were fired can have some grounds to go, because prior to this, they wouldn't have been able to get a foot in the door. Now maybe they can get somewhere. And I would go back and retaliate. Bet me, you fired me because I wouldn't do what you wanted me to do against my health? No. Because I knew better? No. Ain't going to happen.
1/3 of the entire world population was infected. There are several very interesting things about the Spanish flu. First of all, it didn't start in Spain. Secondly, it wasn't a flu. There's more, but let's start with these two, shall we? If it didn't start in Spain, then where did it? In the US. If it wasn't a flu virus, what was it? It was a bacteria that caused severe and in most cases lethal pneumonia. Long story short, during the first half of 1918, an experimental bacterial meningitis vaccine cultured in horses by the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research in New York, now the Rockefeller University, was injected into soldiers at Fort Riley. The so-called Spanish flu was a vaccine experiment gone horribly wrong. 2 million of them went overseas. They fought under poor sanitary conditions, so the bacteria spread like wildfire wherever they went. This story was then spread that these soldiers would come home with all sorts of European diseases, so the American population was vaccinated as well. Who was in charge of that distribution and mass vaccination program? The Rockefeller Institute. Who was the main scientist in charge? Dr. Frederick Gates. Those who survived became cloud adults, meaning they spread the bacteria to others, even the non-vaccinated. In modern COVID days, we would call it shedding. The vaccinated infecting the non-vaccinated. Amazing coincidence, right? Frederick Gates then, Bill Gates now. Rockefeller Initiative then, Rockefeller Initiative now. Disease developed in Fort Riley, US then. Disease developed in Wuhan, China now. Closed down societies then. Closed down societies now. Cloud adults then. Shedding now. All for our own good, our own safety. Back then. And now.
So even if you haven't been had the wonderful you-know-what, there's still a possibility that you have the spike protein running through your body. Because what's been shown is through the shedding process, and we all shed, that's how these, they have the bloodhounds that find people. It's because they can track their trail because they're shedding cells. And so the spike protein is being shed to those who haven't had the you-know-what. I think at this point, the word's been said so many times, we're going to get jammed. So I've been looking around because some very close friends of mine went through with that. And they began to exhibit some concerning things. One of them has what's called long COVID. I don't think it's long COVID. I think it's vaccine damage. There we go again. I'm going to get in trouble, I'm telling you. Okay, watch.
The following video is from Rafa Calvin from La Quinta Columna, who I now work closely with. And here we are looking at dental anesthetics and the nanotech within them. And all over the world we have people in our laboratories looking at liquids from dental anesthetics, jabs, everything, and looking and observing what we find in them. And as we already know, dental anesthetics have nanotech, hydrogels, graphene oxide, and more in them. And that, obviously that's part of the transhumanism agenda. So we then try and find solutions, and we put products on the slides to see what dissolves them. And we already know that Rafa did the incredible work where we found nicotine dissolving the nanotechnology. So here you now see a product called monocolin K, which is found in red yeast rice. That is something that you can buy and is often used to lower cholesterol naturally. Now, on this slide, when he applies the red rice, it actually completely starts to dissolve the hydrogel and the nanotechnology. Now, strangely enough, the government in Europe actually started to stop the use of red rice yeast. In fact, in 2022, a new regulation came in that red rice yeast could not be produced and be sold without it being less than 3 milligrams a day. So, I mean, it speaks volumes, doesn't it? I mean, in regards to nicotine, they state that that's going to be banned in time. So again, this is a microscopy session by Rafa looking at dental anesthetics at 4,000 times magnification and showing that red rice yeast actually dissolves the nanotech and makes it completely disappear.
Like I said, some sick people pushing this stuff on. Put that back on. That way I can hear myself better. Sick people pushing this stuff on. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that even the president has used the word treason repeatedly. My dog is not doing well tonight at all. And basically pointed to the old man himself. Before I play this video, I want to play the short video by JFK. And you may have heard this before, but listen closely to the words. It's not very long. It's only like a minute and a half. But listen to what he's telling the people at the time. And part of this, he's asking people, he needs your help. I need your help. And I believe this was one of the major things that got him the bullet to the head.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no secret is revealed. But I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. Confident that with your help, Man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
You know, I can't think of the video that we just showed a second ago. There are theories, and the more I watch the video, the more I think the theories are correct. The shot to the head was the driver. You can see the driver turn around, shot to the head, turn back around, and drive on. Marinate on that. If I'm right, go back and watch the video of the beginning of the parade at Dealey Plaza, I think it's what it's called. And you'll see that was a couple of Secret Service agents that were supposed to be alongside the car that were waved off, and you can see one of them just in utter frustration throw his hands up going, "What is all that about? What are you doing?" And a short time later, of course, they shoot him in the head. More and more of the stuff as it's coming out, people remember I said about the dash. Yeah. 45-47. Someone else said to me, I have to go back and look at it, but they said, go look at him during the inauguration. You'll see that he didn't put his hand on the Bible. I have to go see if that's true. And they said, you know why? I said, why? And they said, because he's already president. There's a lot of little things that if you look for, little telltale signs, they kind of stand out. And now with this discovery of all this information that Tulsi Gabbard has found, they have the evidence, but I think he's had the evidence all along. I think that was the reason they raided his Mar-a-Lago home, is they believed that the papers that they would keep them safe were there. And I don't think they got what they were looking for at all. And now with the raid of Bolton, oh man, with the raid from Bolton, I think this is going to be the first domino that's going to be going down one by one, and they are prepping the people. When the president himself says, here, you listen to him, see what he says.
They caught President Obama absolutely cold, Tulsi Gabbard. What they did to this country in 2016, starting in 2016, but going up all the way going up to 2020 in the election. They tried to rig the election, and they got caught. And there should be very severe consequences for that. You know, when we caught Hillary Clinton, I said, you know what? Let's not go too far here. It's the ex-wife of a president, and I thought it was sort of terrible. And I let her off the hook, and I'm very happy I did. But it's time to start, after what they did to me, and whether it's right or wrong, it's time to go after people. Obama's been caught directly. So people say, oh, you know, a group. It's not a group. It's Obama. His orders are on the paper. The papers are signed. The papers came right out of their office. They sent everything to be highly classified. Well, the highly classified's been released. And what they did in 2016 and in 2020 is very criminal. It's criminal at the highest level. So that's really the things you should be talking about. I know nothing about the other, but I think it's appropriate that they do go.
May I ask you about that, Mr. President? Tulsi Gabbard has submitted a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. From your perspective, who should the DOJ target as part of their investigation? What specific figures in the Obama administration?
Well, based on what I read, and I read pretty much what you read, it would be President Obama. He started it. And Biden was there with him, and Comey was there, and Clapper, the whole group was there. Brennan, they were all there in a room, right here. This was the room. This is much more beautiful than it was then, but that's okay. I have nice pictures up that came out of the vaults. They were in there for 100 years. This is much more beautiful. We have the Declaration of Independence now in the room, which wasn't here. I guess people didn't feel too good about putting it here, but I do. But you know what? If you look at those papers, they have them stone cold, and it was President Obama. It wasn't lots of people all over the place. It was them too. But the leader of the gang was President Obama, Barack Hussein Obama. Have you heard of him? And except for the fact that he gets shielded by the press for his entire life, that's the one they... Look, he's guilty. It's not a question. You know, I like to say, let's give it time. It's there. He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election. They tried to obfuscate the election. They did things that nobody's ever even imagined, even in other countries. You've seen some pretty rough countries. This man has seen some pretty rough countries, but you've never seen anything like it. And we have all of the documents. And from what Tulsi told me, she's got thousands of additional documents coming. So President Obama, it was his concept, his idea, but he also got it from crooked Hillary Clinton. Crooked is a $3 bill. Hillary Clinton and her group, the Democrats, spent $12 million to Christopher Steele to write up a report that was a total fake report. Took 2 years to figure that out, but it came out that it was a total fake report. It was made up fiction. And they used that. The one thing they weren't able to do was to, and probably the only thing I respect about the press in years is the press refused to write it before the election. They refused to put it in. The Steele report was a disaster. All lies, all fabrication, all admitted, and admitted fraud. She paid $12 million, and the Democrats, for that report to a wise guy named Christopher Steele. He wrote a phony report, and they wanted to get that report in before the election. And I'll tell you what, I talk about all the time, the fake news, how bad it is. But in this case, they wouldn't do it. They saw it, they read it, and they said, we don't believe it. And it was only after, substantially, like a month and a half after the election, that it got printed, and it was a big wisp. It was just like a bang of nothing, because the election had ended. If that report had gotten published by the New York Times or somebody, and I respect the Times for maybe only this, because they're crooked as you can be. They're a terrible paper, a crooked, corrupt paper. But for this one moment, they said, this is bullshit, we can't put this in. And neither could any other paper. Wall Street Journal's a lousy paper, very, very dishonest paper. As you see, I'm suing them for a lot of money because they do things very badly. It's got a nice name, but it's really, in my opinion, it's a terrible paper. And it can be corrupt. But just so you know, they didn't take the Steele report. It was the dossier. Remember the famous dossier? I called it the fake news dossier. The news wouldn't publish it. And I'm amazed. They had 2.5 months. It was finished. 2.5 months. That was supposed to be what was going to happen. And it got published a couple of months after the election. And frankly, nobody cared too much about it. But that was a big thing. No, we caught Hillary Clinton. We caught Barack Hussein Obama. They're the ones, and then you have many, many people under them. Susan Rice, they're all there. The names are all there. And I guess they figured they're going to put this in classified information, and nobody will ever see it again, but it doesn't work that way. And it's the most unbelievable thing I think I've ever read. So you ought to take a look at that and stop talking about nonsense, because this is big stuff. Never has a thing like this happened in the history of our country. And by the way, it morphed into the 2020 race. And the 2020 race was rigged, and it was a rigged election. And because it was rigged, we have millions of people in our country. We had inflation. We solved the inflation problem. but millions and millions of people came into our country because of that. And people that shouldn't have been, people from gangs and from jails and from mental institutions, people that we don't want in our country, people that we're getting out, dangerous people. 11,888 murderers, many of them 50%, more than 50%, murdered more than one person. I hate to say this with such a distinguished guest, but you know, they asked me a question. I got to answer the question. No, Barack Hussein Obama is the ringleader. Hillary Clinton was right there with him, and so was Sleepy Joe Biden, and so were the rest of them. Comey, Clapper, the whole group. And they tried to rig an election, and they got caught. And then they did rig the election in 2020. And then because I knew I won that election by a lot, I did it a third time, and I won in a landslide. Every swing state won the popular vote. But I won that all the same way in 2020. And look at the damage that was caused.
45-47. Think about that. And now what he said is the hunted have now become the hunter. And that's what's going on. And I'm frustrated because I really wanted to see this happen a lot sooner. This is way past due. But again, to point out, because I have some people who listen and go, oh, you just love him no matter what he do. No, if he were guilty, if he was on the Epstein list of somebody who went to the island repeatedly, like Bill Clinton or somebody like that, I'd say if it shows up that he's a predator, then he deserves the same as them. But I can tell you, I don't think that that's the case. I've had some of my friends send me pictures of him with young girls when he was doing these pageants. And these, I guess they look like teenagers. And he had teenagers all around him. Well, it's the pageant, you know. And it's not like he's touching any of them inappropriately. And then somebody else sent me an alleged suit that was filed against him for the rape of some girl. If there were any meat to that, don't you know that the other side who wants to see this man fail so badly, they want to see him fail so badly that they're willing to destroy the country? Don't you think that if they could find something that would show that he did something like that, oh my gosh, it would be front page news night and day. So I don't hold a lot of credit to any of that. I think that there are people who want to see this man fail and they're willing to do just about anything. It's pretty evident at this point. Many reasons. I think some of it is they can't believe that this is an outsider. He's not part of the ring. He didn't come in through the ranks like everybody else had. He wasn't a congressman or a senator or a governor or a mayor or heck no, he jumped right in at the top. How dare him? And then win on top of that. And then after winning, he's going to rock the boat. I tell you, it's got to be a divine hand in his man's life. Got to be. That there's 2 times they tried to kill him. I had somebody tell me, you know, that was staged, right? How do you stage that? Oh, well, the guy who was trying to shoot him was only supposed to nick him. Okay. And then had somebody else tell me, you know, the bleeding was from, the bullet never hit him. That was glass. What glass? The thing that's in front of him, glass? It didn't look like it got hit to me. There's so many crazy people wanting to come up with an excuse of some sort. They can't believe that this man evaded a bullet so closely. I mean, all he would have had to do is turn his head the very slightest and it would have been over. It would have been done. But they can't come to terms with that for whatever reason. And then the shooter, you know, this is something else that I'm not happy with. I don't understand why he's not pushing full bore to find out more about this kid who had was over $1 million. He had over $1 million. He had encrypted accounts. The stuff that the average, I don't think the average, I don't know, how old is he? He's in his 20s, right? I don't think the average 20-something guy has $1 million with encrypted accounts and how many different cell phones and all kinds of equipment, range finders, and of course he was up there for so long. There are citizens saying, there's a man on the roof, there's a man on the roof. Nobody's doing anything about it. And the cops or the Secret Service that was supposed to be in the adjacent window, which would have very easily seen him without any question. Oh, they happen to be out looking for the guy. Too many questions. Too many questions. Again, it's the mentality. This is the mentality of the people that we're dealing with. They would easily kill any one of us and not even give it a second thought. Within the blink of an eye, if it served their purpose, if it gave them more power in some way, heck yeah. Because that's what a lot of them had planned for us anyway. These FEMA camps that have been set up all over the place, they were for what do they call it? Re-education. Where you go there, somebody like me goes there and they're going to try to indoctrinate me. They're going to try to get me to persuade me to be their way, and if I don't, then there may be a way for them to have me not be alive anymore. The National Defense Authorization Act that Obama signed, somewhere buried deep in the act. And that's the other thing. When they pass these things, instead of being something relatively that we can read right away, right? Oh, no, it's like, 500, 1,000 pages. Somewhere buried deep in this bunch of paper is the right for the government to execute people. And the preferred method, beheading. I wonder how many people know that. I think it was 2012, 2014, somewhere in there. Government bought 32,000 human guillotines. They don't talk about that. I don't know where they're at now. We had pictures of them at one time. They're all gone. We had a couple of people come out and give testimony that they were being trained on how to use them. Never heard from them again. See, that's the mentality that I've been saying to you. If anybody stands up against them, now this is before Trump got here. If anybody stands up against them, then they pretty much doomed themselves. They're pretty much doomed. But there are people who, quote, obeyed orders that they shouldn't have obeyed. That's on you, pal. There's nobody twisting your arm and putting a knife in your back to do what you did. And I'm thinking particularly about a man called Lavoy Finicum, murdered by the FBI, upright murdered. There's no question about it. The man had his arms out, had no weapons in his hands, and they shot him dead. Then they tried to shoot the people that were in the car with him. They didn't get away with that. And nobody ever got in any trouble for any of that. There are so many things that come to mind when I think about how sick these people were and the mentality that they were pushing on to people like law enforcement. And as many of those people in law enforcement are still around today. There's another video that I saw of a man was in a hotel with a friend, and he was showing him a spray gun or something that looked like a gun. And somebody called in and said, "Oh, there's a man in whatever room, and he's got a gun." And they call out this guy who's got a whatever. He looks like a AR-15 or something similar. And he calls out first. The woman comes out. They make them crawl on their belly. Get down on the ground, crawl on your belly, crawl towards me. She crawls towards him. Then they make the guy come, and the guy's doing what the guys told him to do, but his pants are falling off. And he says, "My pants are falling off." He reaches back to pull his pants up, and the guy loads him up 4 or 5 times. He ain't going to live through that. Only to find out that the quote gun, the dangerous gun, wasn't even a firearm. It's just something that looked like a gun, some kind of a spray gun or something. The article that I read about the SWAT team breaking into an old man's home, and the old man thought it was because he had intruders before. He thought it was intruders again. Shot at him. They shot him dead. Come to find out, they got the wrong address. Nobody gets in trouble for any of this stuff. This is my frustration. Poor guy's not feeling well tonight. I don't know what to do for him. $85 billion, I think, was the estimate that they left behind in Afghanistan. Not a slap on the hand. Nobody. All of that is now coming to fruition, where people are, I hope and pray what I'm telling you is correct. People are going to be held responsible. It appears as though, especially with this short last video I played for you, people are going to, even at the very top, people are going to be held responsible. I think even Tulsi said nobody is going to be, nobody's above the law or something. Nobody's, even regardless of how high this goes, the prosecution needs to take place. Oh man, my buddy's not feeling well at all. It's tough when you have one of those little ones and they're not doing well. He got himself into the trash earlier and he threw up on me. I hope he's okay. It's not a whole lot I can do for him right now. All right, so let me get back with something that I failed to mention earlier. This thing, I said, why do we support Israel? And I've gotten a lot of grief about this. But before Israel was Israel, that land was called Palestine. Now I'm going to have Christian friends of mine go, oh man, you're pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas. No, I'm not. None of that. I'm just telling you what I know. And if you go back in history books and look, you'll see maps that place is called Palestine. There were Jews living there. There were Christians living there. There were Muslims living there. There was, all the major religions were there already. In 1948, I think it was, is when this agreement was signed. And the state of Israel was formed. Well, what happened was, go lay down, buddy. He's not doing well at all. What happened was, as these Ashkenazi Jews moved in, because these weren't Jews, these were European Jews. They were adopted into the Jewish religion. And as they moved in, they became more and more persuasive of literally kicking the Palestinians out, taking more and more of their property, literally taking over their homes that might be generations old. All right, chill out. And really creating a problem to the point where today there are many of them who literally hate Palestinians. And they're told to literally eradicate Palestinians. And this is somebody that came forward and I praise him because he put himself in a pretty dangerous spot saying what he's saying. But I'll have you listen to what he has to say, and it's pretty disturbing.
So who is giving the orders for all the GHF operations?
I was told very explicitly, directly to my face, that our client is the IDF.
Your client is the IDF?
Our client is the IDF. And this came out in a discussion once where I was in the control room. I was on control room duty that day. We had shifted responsibilities on a rotational base. So I was in there that day with the radio observing site number 2 distribution. A Palestinian man had picked up some children to let them step on his shoulders to get onto a berm because they were being crushed in the crowd. Site 2 is very small, smallest of all 4 sites. And these children are being crushed, and picked them up there and put them up on the berm. And the Israeli Defense Forces liaison officer in the main control center with us comes up to the screen that I'm watching and he says, "Tell your men to get them down." I was like, "We got this under control." I was like, "I know they know what they're doing. No, they're children. Let's calm down. Mm-hmm. Get them down now or I will." Well, there's no IDF on the site. So I didn't take it much more than just being, bombastic and like, okay, like, hey, we got this. He leaves and goes to his desk in the operations center and he gets on the radio and he speaks something on the radio. It was in Hebrew. I don't speak Hebrew. One of the contractors that was there was American that did speak Hebrew, and he notifies me. He said, "Hey, he just told the snipers at the IDF position, because the site number 2 is co-located with an Israeli base. He said, he just told the snipers to take these kids out. I was like, on the radio? He's like, yeah. This lieutenant colonel then comes back up and he says, get them down. And I look at him and I say, did you just call on the radio and tell your men to shoot them? He said, I'm going to take care of this if you don't. I said, you are not going to shoot. You are not going to shoot children. You're also not going to shoot because if your men miss, you're going to hit others. You're not going to shoot. Thank God we didn't come to the conclusion of figuring out whether he would or not, because the children jumped down and ran off of the site. They didn't want to be there. They were unarmed. They didn't have shoes. One wasn't even wearing a shirt. They were starving. The chief operations officer for Safe Reach Solutions, our higher headquarters, so to speak, in the contract, beckoned me outside with him, and he looked at me in the face and he said, never say no to the client. And I asked him, I was like, I didn't know the client was in there. Who's here? Did Johnny Moore come to visit? Right. And he said, no, the IDF. I was like, the IDF are our client? He said, yes, we work for them.
There is a post, which I should have saved. There's a post that Netanyahu allegedly said, without him knowing somebody was recording him, that basically America is our bitch and they'll do what we want and we have total control over them. Yeah, I don't have that. Nope. So it's, I said earlier, and again, this isn't the Jews now I'm talking about. Now this is the government. The government, just like I told you, our government, I've given you plenty of examples how our government is corrupt. And this is why we're going through such a painful period right now, because they're trying to clean this corruption out. So if you think our government's corrupt, well, you ought to see theirs. Holy smokes, man. Oh, this is something very interesting I found. Let me bring this up. Take a look at that. Those are 9 ships. 9. Looks like they've got Venezuela pretty well surrounded, don't you think? We got a nuclear sub. I think at least 1 aircraft carrier, maybe 2. Some destroyers. What's going on down there? I think on the last show I said there's a $50 million bounty on Maduro because they don't recognize him as the president. And I saw a post today. There was no article linked to it, so I don't know if it's accurate, but they surmise that he's been caught. So somebody's got $50 million richer. But yeah, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? Look at all that. That's a lot of firepower, man. That's a lot of firepower. Holy smokes. If I were Venezuela, I would be very careful about what I say to the United States at this point. But maybe they're there for that guy, for Maduro, you know. Maybe they're kind of cornering him, if you will, putting him into the corner, not allowing him anywhere to go. Who knows? All right, more lies. Let's see. What else have we got? Well, this is another one. You chill out, buddy. This is, remember I mentioned to you the Georgia Guidestones, okay? It says at the top there, their goal, and if you read it, I don't know if you can read it, but it says maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Well, how are they going to do that? These are all the different tools that they have in order for them to be able to do that. You notice that the big V, we have fluoride. They poisoned our food, they've poisoned the air, they poisoned the water, and they call it a soft kill because it doesn't happen right away. It takes a degree of time for this stuff to build up in your body, where your body begins to fail because of all of this poison, all these toxins that have been put into your body. Then you're told things like this. Oh, well, if you go do this, you're not going to get that, and you won't spread that. And then after they find out that all those were lies, then they try to come back and say, oh, no, we didn't say that. That's a bunch of garbage. All of them that you see right now said that. If you get this, you won't get sick, and you won't pass it on. That is a blatant lie, and they knew they were lying. They need to be held responsible. What a cash cow. I mean, if you look at this from a business point of view, it's a phenomenal cash cow. But look at the price that's paid. Innocent lives. Is it worth it? Apparently to these people it is. More than well worth it. Because they knew exactly what they were doing and they went ahead and they did it anyway. And here's another sad part. Nurses are being taught to give newborns multiple vaccines if they think the parents are anti-vax. Oh, well, if they're not coming back, let's just give them a whole bunch of them right now. Now, remember what I said earlier about the common sense and critical thinking? God has just given you birth. Back up a minute. God has just given you the present of birth. Why do you think that man can do something better than God can? By having this child, this perfectly formed human at this point, and you're going to shove all of this crap in him, like I told you earlier with some of the stuff that are in these vaccines. Is absolutely toxic. It doesn't make sense to put it in somebody's body. But then again, if you want to kill people, this is the way to do it. And now they're being taught, well, listen, if there's a suspicion that the parent will not be, returning the child to the pediatrician or the healthcare center for follow-up immunization according to the optimal immunization schedule, cash cow, any of the recommended vaccines can be administered simultaneously. Any of the recommended vaccines can be administered simultaneously. That means they can all be given at the same time. You talk about messing up a child in their infancy, for God's sake. They should be held in for murder. That's just I get so mad. I can't talk because I get so upset thinking about what they would be doing to kids. And parents, trusting parents, are allowing this to go on because they trust the wrong people. And this is where people like you and me come into play and say, listen, just read up on it before you do anything. Stop now. He's mad. He wants to go out. He wasn't feeling well, and I can't take a break to let him out, so he's mad. To let people know, the other day, him and I, we go to the park as often as I can. I try to make it every day. So we're walking along, and there is a lady and what appeared to be a husband and a wife with a baby carriage. And as we walked by, I said, oh my goodness, is that like a month old, 2 weeks old? And I'm not kidding you when I tell you what I'm about to tell you. I said, I started out with, please forgive me if this is an insult to you or invading your privacy in some way, but I have personal experience with this, and I would just like to know, have you had the child vaccinated? And they said, not that we're aware of. I said, please read up on it. All you have to do, there's information, loads of information. Please read up on it before you make the decision so that at least you have an educated point of view before you do anything. And they did. This is part of, I believe, our responsibilities. Those who know that these things are not safe should tell people, stop it. It's making me mad. Should tell people. I've said many times, one of the responsibilities we have with knowledge, if you know something that can help somebody and you don't say anything, and that person is harmed in some way, shape, or form, then the guilt in that, you share a portion of that guilt because you may have been able to completely stop it by saying something. Instead, by remaining silent and the person being hurt, now you're part of the problem. That's why these people look at our silence as their consent. When people don't speak out, that gives them the consent. Again, this mentality, it's hard for the average person to wrap their mind around the sickness, this darkness that is within them. But an analogy that I give people is, if you and I are standing alongside of each other, and I say to you, I'm going to kick you, and you don't say anything, and I kick you, hey, Karma's off of me. I told you I was going to kick you. You didn't say anything. If you'd have said, don't kick me, that would have been different, but you didn't say anything. That's how they think. The way that I think is if you and I are walking alongside the road and you happen to be on the street side of the sidewalk, the closest to the street, maybe you have a set of headphones on, you're distracted, you're on a phone, something. I see a car coming at you. I'm going to pull you out of the way. I'm not going to be quiet. I'm not going to stand idly by and watch you get run over. I may even hurt you in the process, depending upon how hard I pull you out of the way because how fast this car's coming at us. That's the difference between people like me and people like them. They would burn you while I would do everything within my power to keep that from happening. It's hard to wrap your mind around these people and these abortions that go on. Hundreds of thousands of abortions a year. These are blood sacrifices. Remember, I said this fight is not just here in the physical. We have a spiritual component of this. And that spiritual component is in rituals. And one of the rituals are blood sacrifices. And that's what happens with all of these children, these innocent children that have no voice, that are murdered in the womb. And they have the mothers believe, oh, it's just a clump of cells. It's no big deal. I've said many times, I don't think abortion should be legal. I don't think it should be illegal. It should be immoral. I think that if an individual is going to get an abortion, let me correct that. If a woman is going to get an abortion, I think that woman should be required prior to the abortion, in whatever stage that she is in, to watch a video, which they have plenty of the same abortion at whatever stage that she's in, that abortion would occur. So she could see exactly what's going on. I think that would change some minds. I think that if some of them were able to get a sonogram and see this life that is within them, I think that would change their minds. But there many of them have just been so enumerated with garbage that's beyond them. It's just a clump of cells and it's a quick out. This is what they call healthcare. Every time that this happens to a woman, it destroys part of her body. There's no way around it. You can't try to undo something that God has done without paying a price. It's part of the laws of the universe. There's an up, there's a down. There's a right, there's a left. There's a dark, there's a light. It's all part of the laws of the universe. You can't try to undo something that belongs to God and not have to pay some kind of price for it later on. Just doesn't happen. And people are not aware of that. They think, oh, this is just health care. You know, just like they call what do they call it when they cut the kids up? I'm trying to think of what they call that. I can't think of what it's, but they give it a nice name of some sort, you know. Baloney. You're chopping kids up. You're messing with their minds. They'll never be the same. And don't kid yourself. So I had a Facebook friend. Now, this is not a personal friend. It's a Facebook friend who I'd been friends with for, I don't know, a couple of years, 3 or 4 years. Knew my position, knew my political position, because I don't, like I said, I don't keep quiet about this stuff. And we talked we had a couple of conversations. We talked a lot about just life in general. And then he disappeared on me. I said, well, maybe he unfriended me. I don't know. It's not like he was a close friend of mine. And so I just figured I got unfriended. I didn't hear from him for quite a while. And then I got a friend request from somebody that looked like him, but it was a girl. And so I said, okay, if I don't like this person, I'm going to have to block him and delete him. So I accepted the friend request. Come to find out, it was him. He had gone under the surgery and got himself a set of breasts and cut off his penis and put in, I don't know what they do, but they did whatever they did. And he wanted me to accept him. I said, listen, I accept that you have the right to do to yourself whatever you want to do to yourself. If you feel that strongly that you have to go through this, then you have the right to do that. It's not my place to judge you. The only thing I will not agree with you on is that why you did what you did. I think that there's something going on upstairs that's not right for you. And very possibly, more probably than possibly, you're infested with a spirit of some sort that's causing this problem in your life. Didn't want to hear it. I don't hear from him anymore. I wasn't judging him. I just told him what I felt. He was very strong. To me, he's going to be he. I'm, regardless of what you've done to yourself externally, if God had you born as an XY, you're a boy, and you're going to be a boy for the rest of your life. You'll turn into a young man to a whatever, but you will be a male for the rest of your life. I don't care what you do to yourself externally, because you're carrying the chromosomes. You can't change until they can get to the point where they literally change your chromosomes and your DNA from a male to a female. Then maybe you are a woman. But at that point, no, you're just somebody who's done something, sadly, that a lot of people don't agree with. They just don't agree. It's just not, to me, it's not right. I'm kind of old-fashioned in that way. I don't, I know it's real popular with tattoos. I don't have tattoos. When I was growing up, tattoos were a negative thing. They weren't a positive thing. So I've always had, that thing of having no tattoos. They got me drunk when I was in the service. They got me drunk one night and took me to get a tattoo. And even drunk, I said, no, it ain't happening. No, it's just one of those things. I don't think anybody who has a tattoo is bad. I'm just not for me. It's just one of those things. So anyway, I try my best to get through to people. And if I can't get through, then I just, I move on, because there's not a whole lot of time left. I really believe that we are in the end times, that we're living in Revelation, that God is sending his son back. And when he comes back, he's not going to be this I don't want to say harmless, because he wasn't harmless last time, but I can't think of the right word, this person who is humility, who's full of humility and love. He's going to be full of humility and love, but he's also going to be full of anger, and he's going to be pissed, and he's going to really put the light on this darkness in this world. And we have to survive until that time. And I believe that time is coming within our lifetime. I really do. More than ever, I believe that's going to happen within our lifetime. We're going to see the return, and people are going to have to pay. Hopefully, before he returns, some of these criminals that I've been talking about are going to see justice. They're going to have to pay, because it's difficult for someone like me, especially myself, who was awakened to a war that was going on while I was in the service. Was all based on a lie. I had such a hard time wrapping my mind around, why would somebody do that? It was just beyond me. We went and killed hundreds of thousands of people for a lie. Are you kidding me? No, it's serious. It was a lie, and it brought about a war. And almost 60,000 of my generation didn't come home. That's what they say anyway. Probably even more than that. And then hundreds of thousands of the other side, all for a war. Having to learn, when I found out about that, I really thought I was having a nervous breakdown. I truly did. I couldn't believe I held, this is how ignorant I was. I held our government in honor, because I've served in the military, and we had honor in the military when I served. How could they do that? We wouldn't go kill somebody for a lie. And when I came to terms with it, and when I realized what was going on, we were about to invade Afghanistan. And I'm going, wait a minute now. Why are we going to go to Afghanistan and invade Afghanistan? And then no sooner than we got in Afghanistan, we were in Iraq. And then I really started to literally feel sick, realizing what we were doing. This is long before I heard about General Wesley Clark and the 7 countries and 5, and long before any of that. I'm just watching us go to war, one after the other. And I happened to be doing a radio show at the time, and I'm going, you can't go around the planet being the bully and not expect it to come back and bite you in the proverbial behind. It just, again, it's one of the laws of the universe. You can't keep putting out, violence and violence and violence and not expect violence to come back. And here we are. and people are freaking out. I can't understand it. We know that there are people here that don't belong here. And of them that don't belong here, they've literally murdered innocent people, literally. Why would you support them staying here? I want to bang my, I want to find a, there used to be this thing many years ago for us who worked behind the counter. We had this poster and it was a silhouette of a head. And it said, bang here. And so when you get frustrated, you lay it on your desk and you bang your head. You bang your head on this thing until you knock some sense into yourself, I guess. That's how I feel sometimes. It's so frustrating. To me, it stands out so distinctly, and yet people don't see it. I'm talking about the park, right? I was at the park, and of course they're marinating us again with the crap up above us, just loaded up. And I'm walking along, and I see this like 3 or 4 people. It's 4 people, all walking together, and they're looking up in the sky. I guess they're looking for UFOs or something. I said, "What are you looking at?" And they said, "No, we're just observing. It's such a pretty day." I said, "You see those lines up there?" And they said, "Yeah." I said, "Watch those lines because it's going to take this pretty day and turn it into a gray day." And they just kind of looked at me and walked on. Well, I was in the park for about a half an hour walking. By the time I got done walking, those thin gray lines were no longer thin. They were quite wide, and they were covering most of the sky at that point. And I was looking around for these people. I wanted to find these. I told you. But they were long gone. But that's me. I can't. It's just this thing in me that will not remain quiet. If I see something, I can't be quiet about it. And I think more and more people should be like that. If you see an obvious wrong, I'm looking up in the sky, I'm watching these planes spray us with this garbage. That is obviously not right. Okay, I can't be quiet about that. The thing with the, in the arm, I don't want to keep saying the word because I'm sure I'm going to catch all kinds of grief for tonight because we've played videos and we said the word so many times. I can't be quiet about that. I can't. Even if somebody gets upset with me and says, "How dare you? It's none of your business," I'll apologize and walk away. And in my mind, okay, now it's on you. I tried to tell you, you didn't want to listen. I'm out. See you, bye. But I won't be quiet about it. We need more people to stand up for what is right. We know in our hearts what is right. It's not right to have an abortion. I can't think of any circumstance where somebody could have an abortion other than if it were something that was going to endanger the mother's life for sure. Then they could, and with the technology that we have today, they could remove the egg that has been fertilized and fertilize it outside the womb. But other than that, no, I don't see any reason for an abortion. I don't see any justification other than it's a ritual and a blood sacrifice to a god that they call Molech. That's really what this boils down to. I've been saying all along, all night tonight, it's a spiritual fight. We're fighting a spiritual. Sadly, there's 2 components to it, but the root, the power, comes from the spiritual side. These people that are multi-billionaires, I don't think they believe in God. Most of them. I think that their God is money, obviously, because they worship that so much that they've got so much of it. They've got more than I don't know how many generations could never work again and still have money. And it's like I said earlier, you reach a point where you have a certain amount of wealth and it's invested in so many different places. It's just going to keep making money over and over and over. It doesn't matter. You look at this guy, Jeff Bezos, I think his name is. What did he spend, like $20 million, I heard, on a wedding? $20 million on a wedding. But see, to somebody like him, $20 million is like $20 to you and me. No big deal. All right, we'll spend $20. No biggie. And you got billions and billions and billions of dollars. 20 million is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. Give me some hundreds, I'll light up some cigars. But again, these people don't think like you and I, and I don't mean business-wise, I mean life-wise. They really think that the majority of them think that they're here to do nothing more than to tell us what to do and to govern us. That's how they believe. That they are what was that word that they used? I can't think of the word that they used. That they're remnants of the fallen angels in families. In the Bible, it says that Satan fell and brought, was it 200, I think, angels with him. And the angels found the women of birth so pretty that they decided to, have families with them. And the men were men of renown, I think the Bible says. Great men of renown. These are the billionaires. This is the bloodline that we're dealing with. Bill Gates. I don't think that man's human. I really don't. You realize how much damage this man has done? And I think if the last count, I think it's like 18 different countries he's wanted. No, that's Fauci. Fauci's wanted 17 countries for Fauci. I think Fauci's day is coming. I think Bill Gates' day is coming. I just saw a report where RFK Jr. has rescinded the monies that were going to Bill Gates foundations for the Big V. And he rescinded the mandate. So we have positive things happening. So many people are looking for the negative. And unfortunately, there is a lot of negative because it's been going on for so long. But the light is coming out. And the way to chase the darkness is to add light. And that's what each one of us can be. We can be a light. I had this happen to me in my life. It was so amazing at the time. I was in a very small church. There was maybe 70 people total in this church. And the pastor came out and he had a candle in his hand, and he had the service people in the church walk up and down the aisles and give everybody a candle. Everybody in the church now has a candle. It's like probably about 70 of us. And he asked somebody to turn the lights off. He turned the lights off, and the church got quite dark. This happened to be at nighttime. It was quite dark in the church. I could hardly see my nose in front of me. He lights his one candle. He then takes that one candle and he starts at one of the end of the pews and he lights that candle. And then he tells that person to light the candle next to him and that person the candle next to him and carry it on down. And then when they get to the end of the pew, turn around to the pew behind you and light their candle. In the span of about 10 minutes, which is what it took us to get everybody lit up, the place was lit up with more light than when the lights were on. And he was telling us that each one of us is like a candle in this dark world. And as long as we keep lighting each other's candle, we can chase the darkness away. That stuck with me because there have been times when I just felt so hopeless. And then I realized all I need to do is get a hold of some of my friends and we'll light each other up. And as we light each other up, we chase the darkness out. It's one of the most powerful tools that we have is to be able to get with each other and to pray against this evil that is upon us. It is truly something that they fear. There's very little that they fear. One thing that they fear, probably the highest, is the ability of society to wake up to what's going on and realize that we've been lied to and they've been stolen from. That would be one. Another one, they don't believe in God, but they fear that God is going to come back and get them because they don't believe in God. They don't believe in the God that we believe in. Their God is the God of the fallen world. And the third one I can't remember. But again, it's hard for someone to try to understand the mental state that these people are in. The value on life is non-existent. Only the lives that are directly related to them. Aaron Russo, if you're not familiar with that name, he was a director. One of his friends, I think, was one of the Rockefellers. Aaron and this Rockefeller were having a discussion. This was prior to 9/11. And the Rockefeller man told him that there's going to be an event soon. And this event is going to cause us to go to war. And Aaron asked him, kind of nudged him as to more and more and more. And he said, Aaron, somewhere along the line in the conversation, Aaron said, what about all the innocent people And this Rockefeller guy said to him, don't worry about them. We'll only worry about you and your family. That's the only thing you need to worry about. This is how they think. They only worry about them and their immediate family. Everybody else is garbage. You're nothing to them. It doesn't matter how close you feel to them or how much service you have provided to them, how loyal you have been to them, doesn't mean a thing. If you're not in their circle, if you're not in their bloodline, see you bye. When the time comes, you are expendable. This is the darkness that we're trying to get rid of. This has rooted itself all throughout our government, and not just federal government, state government, local city governments. This is the thing that he's fighting right now. More and more of this is getting rooted out. I played for you earlier, 23,000 kids, right? I don't see it. I had it up. I think it was 23,000 children. Yeah, 23,000. 23,000 children they found. The last administration lost almost 400,000 children. Where'd they go? Sad. And there was no effort to try to recover any of them. It didn't happen until this administration came into play. So there's a lot of positive things happening that are behind the scenes that a lot of people don't realize, because the media, they're relying on the media, the mainstream media, to get their information. When I've said for years, they're nothing but propagandists. If we had a number one enemy in this country, it would be the media. The media has misled people so many times. The media has portrayed people as villains when they absolutely were not. The media is what has perpetrated the hate in this country. So it's the media. And speaking of the media, I just saw an article. I have to read the whole article, but something about Trump is thinking about having the FCC revoke ABC, CBS, and NBC licenses. Good. What I don't understand is all of these outlets, prior to Obama, it was illegal to transmit propaganda, that they were required to report the news on a neutral basis. Just report what happened, nothing else, not your feelings, not anything that might persuade the listener to look at it from one side or another. Just what happened, and that's it. I don't know why Trump hasn't reversed that, whatever that is. And will everything that this dipstick passed while he was president, if he gets found to be guilty of treason, I'm sure that they can come up with the proper evidence that shows he wasn't eligible to be a president. He wasn't born in this country. He was born in Kenya. He even admits it. So would that void everything? There's a case before the Supreme Court, the Brunson case. If that case goes through, the majority of the Congress is out. And I think the Senate too, but I think the majority of the Congress is out because they're going to find them negligent for the 2020 election. They had the opportunity. I think a little over 100 of them, more than 120 or so of them, were not wanting to sign off on the election because they had questions and they pushed it right through. So all of those people that pushed it right through, yeah, they're going to be held responsible. I hope and pray I'm right. But I see that happening coming down the line as they're prepping people, as they're continuing to use these words like treason. And coming from high levels, coming from the Department of National Intelligence, coming from the president himself, with the press secretary repeating it. They're prepping the people. That's what I see. They're prepping the people for mass arrests, and they're preparing by putting all of these federal guards out in the National Guard, out in different places where they fear there's going to be uprisings because, oh my God, they arrested Obama. All the Trump worshipers, as we're called, I didn't see any of us having a fit when they went to Mar-a-Lago and raided the man. A lot of us were pissed, but I didn't see anybody burning cities down. I didn't see anybody murdering somebody else. With this that's coming, a lot of that went on, those were paid provocateurs. And the people paying them will probably pay them triple this go around if this goes down the way I think it will go down. And that's going to be massive outrage. Massive outrage. They will get people, they'll work on it in people's emotions. And so people are all worked up. And there'll be massive outrage. And that's what the purpose of the National Guard will be, to keep these people in line and not allow this to happen like it happened once before, where cities, businesses were burned down. How can you, this is why I say they pay provocateurs. You live in a neighborhood. What freaking common sense have you got to go burn down the local store and break in and loot the store? Like, what did the store do to hurt you? That's why I say these people are paid. They pay provocateurs, and the people who are paying them are going to pay dearly this go around, because they can't afford what's going down. They have to do everything that they can. They're now backed into a corner. This is how I see it. They're backed into a corner. What did I hear about the Soros? I think Trump wants to have Soros investigated on the RICO Act. Things are starting to close in. You know, when I was watching the last administration, I could see this net that was closing in, but it was closing in on us, on the citizens. And now I see that net is not for us. That net is now closing in on the criminals. Every day that goes by, that net gets a little bit smaller. Every day that goes by, there'll be one or two more that are arrested. I think Cash said there was over 1,000. No, back up a minute. It wasn't Cash. It was Dan Bongino said, I think, over 11,000 arrests since Trump has come into office. Whew. With 23,000 children found. Yeah, stuff is happening. Stuff is happening in the background. They don't want you to know about it because it would put Trump in a positive light. They can't have that. So I hope they do lose their license, because they're well worthy of losing it. They won't tell us the truth. They won't just report it. Don't put any bias in it. Just report it. But they can't do that. They can't tell you the truth. And another thing that RFK Jr. I'm thinking about now just came to mind. He wants to ban pharmaceutical advertisements. You know, when years ago, you used to have alcohol advertisements. You know, hard alcohol. I think they have beer still, but I don't think they have hard alcohol. I don't watch TV, but I don't think it's on TV. They banned it. And I think this should be the same with these pharmaceuticals. We should ban it, because these people are, quote, reporting to you the news. A lot of their money, the majority of their money, comes from pharmaceuticals. And so they're going to do whatever the pharmaceutical wants. If the pharmaceutical wants you to report this way on this story, bet your bottom dollar you're going to report this way on this story, because you don't want your cash cow getting mad at you. And instead of giving you gold, giving you poop, backing out on you. All right. I know sometimes it feels like I'm raging on, but I'm happy on one end and I'm frustrated on the other. I got to tell you, I'm happy that Kamala didn't win, because we'd really be in a world of poop. But I'm frustrated because I expected a lot of this already happened. I'm happy that I'm seeing some forward progress, and I'm believing that really some things are going to start happening that I've been hoping and praying for, and that major names that are known all around the world, are going to be arrested. My only request is, if this goes down, that it may be made public, absolutely public, that everybody can see. I want to see certain people do the perp walk. Certain people, you know, that do the perp walk. John Podesta, Hillary Clinton, Obama, Barry Soto, aka Barry Soto, aka Obama, his wife, his man wife. Yeah, Michael. I want to see the perf walk. I gotta go. All right, guys. Thank you. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe, please. It helps us gain some people on the channel. And I am ever so grateful for all of you who take the time to let me share with you on Saturday nights. I'm working on a special guest for next week. I don't know if he'll be able to come on. I don't want to say anything until he does. If he comes on, I'll have a lot of posts up. It'll be very interesting to those of you who are looking to be a healthier person. This is a person who's been in that field for 3 decades. I think he knows what he's doing. Anyway, until then, God bless you. Be well, and get out of here.
Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. Take the red pill, take the blue pill, take the red pill, take the blue pill. You take the red pill, and